Have you ever had the experience where you've been working on something, defining it, refining it, prioritizing it, tinkering with it, pruning it, while having to trust the process throughout, especially if it's something that possibly you've never done before? And then that thing starts to blossom and it ends up growing bigger than you had imagined and reaches different places and adds different layers that you maybe were not thinking of before, which then causes you to go on this adventure trying to understand what you created, trying to embrace what you have planted. And then you need to come back and share it with your best friend, and you don't even know where to start with the story. Do I start right now? Do I take you from the beginning, maybe go from the middle to the end and then jump back? How would that work so you don't get confused or dizzy? This is kind of what I'm grappling with when it comes to where I'm at right now with my business, Bandele Muse. And so I've decided I'm just going to figure it out as I go and share with you now that I have a moment to be able to. Yes? So, if you didn't know already, Bandele Muse is my brand and business. I like to call it a Afrofuturistic conglomerate experience. And among other things, which we'll get into later, I now have finally completed our first clothing collection. This is the first one that's been completed. There were 4 other attempts before. And I now can see in hindsight that those 4 other attempts, which got pretty close, which required investment and energy, were my training grounds to get to this point. So there's different layers to what this collection represents. And I'm so excited to share those different details with you. So first, there's a Bandele Muse story. Have I told you this? I have written, still finishing up writing, an Afrofuturistic sci-fi fantasy adventure story. There are 5 main characters in this story, and I am one of them. We are all from the future, and we traveled to this era in time. I'm the one who traveled first, and the other, my co-characters, are being sent to stop me. But I can't tell you why. You have to read the book first, which I'll be talking about later when it's actually fully ready. The interesting thing is that this year I was inspired and encouraged to adapt the story for an animation series. Now, this was an idea I had when I started writing the story. Like, yes, it's going to be a book and a series and a movie. It's going to be merchandise. It's going to be like, yes. Funnily enough, though, I thought that would come later, later. But for whatever reason, this year, the right people were in my corner to be like, Dagny, let's do this. And what was beautiful about that was that I needed to adapt the story, rewrite parts of it for it to blend well for an animator and illustrator to understand what details to bring to life. And one of those details was the wardrobe for the characters. I knew what the characters were supposed to look like. I knew what their personalities are, what their style could be, but I had not created their closet yet. While I was doing that got me into jumping a variety of rabbit holes. Because if they're coming from the future and coming here, and technically we are all undercover, and technically it's within the region of West Africa, because in the year 3025, do you really think this region is going to look the same? No, it won't. So our wardrobe needs to speak to that, yes? And when you look at futuristic fashion, which I'll talk about later, you're looking at Star Wars, Star Trek, Hunger Games, that doesn't necessarily speak to this story. And so as I was doing my research and doing my sketches, I decided that actually their wardrobe speaks to what fashion for in Africa could look like 1,000 years from now. Where, yes, it can pop, it can be bold, it can be futuristic, but it doesn't look like a costume. Because at least in my story, my heroes or characters or secret agents are undercover but also unapologetic. So they don't necessarily need to blend in. They just can't completely show off the fact that they might have a few superpowers underneath their sleeves. Adding then another layer of what does African fashion look like today? What it has looked like 1,000 years ago? What cuts and textiles tend to remain the same regardless of what year you are in? These are all the things that inspired this particular collection, which includes pieces and fits for all genders. It was a really beautiful experience to create because it further embodies, I feel, what the Bandele Muse brand has grown to stand for. Where, yes, Afrofuturism, which we're going to speak more on because it's a term that people have different definitions for, different understandings of, is a pillar for the brand in layers that include fashion. It also includes education, also includes empowerment, also includes entertainment, also includes in-person events, where it's not only an aesthetic, but it's also trying to get us to expand our mindset when it comes to culture, when it comes to how we maintain our culture, how do we express it, how do we create heirlooms for it, the parts of it that we want to showcase and the parts of it that we want to improve. That is one of the layers behind this particular collection and what Bandele Muse has grown now to be. So next, we're going to be talking more about African fashion, historically and in the future, as well as Afrofuturism. I'm so excited.